Hi, Steve Bergen here, and we are going to continue on our Excel journey as we move from JV to varsity Excel users. And we're going to be creating a pivot table in this example. So you're familiar with the U.S. President spreadsheet. We'd like to analyze the colleges that the 35 presidents attended, and then if possible, tally by the political party. So here's my spreadsheet, and I'm going to go up to data, and it may be located on a different menu on yours, and I'm going to choose pivot table. A pivot table is an analytical tool. We usually put it in a new worksheet, so we take the defaults here. And now we're going to put something in the row area and the column area. So I want to analyze where these presidents went to college. So I will take college and put it in the row label area. And now I'll see alphabetical order from Allegheny to Yale, but I don't know any numbers. So these are the labels of the rows where I'm pointing here. These are the numbers that we're going to see in the values area. Right here where it says values area. We're taking this nice and slow because this is definitely a difficult, complicated thing. So in the values area, we're going to analyze president, and now it's going to tell us that 4 presidents went to Harvard, 8 presidents did not go to college, 3 presidents went to Yale. This is the count of how many presidents fell into that category. This is the row labels. If I move this over here, it does the same kind of chart, except it does it by horizontal instead of vertical. And the nature of the data is such that you're going to want to do, sometimes row is better, sometimes column is better. Now the exercise, as we said, was to analyze the colleges and tally by the political party. So now I'm going to say what fields or categories, what field or category, there it is, political party. If I put political party down below, it'll do rows and then subcategories. So now it says Allegheny, Republican, Bowdoin, Democrat. But that's not as pretty, it's not as useful as if I put political party in the column labels. Now it analyzes in the column labels, it puts the 5 or 6 parties there, it gives me a grand total, and it totals the stuff on the bottom. Obviously, as I said before, I could switch that and that. Again, not as kind of pretty or not as functional. This is probably the best introduction to a pivot table, and I urge you to take it slow and just do what I'm doing. Experiment with just one thing. You don't have to do count. You can also do things like averaging and summing. As a matter of fact, if I click the eye, you'll see that there's a whole lot of functions that you can do on that column. And in different examples, we'll do more. Okay? This sits on a tab on the bottom of your spreadsheet. So right here, it created a tab called Sheet 1. I can click on that and I can change it to say pivot table. So a pivot table analyzes the data. Let me do one more repetition and let me delete that tab. I go back to my 35 presidents and I find under one of your menus, pivot table. I take the defaults and I've got nothing there. I'm going to analyze colleges, so I put college in either row or column. I don't really know which is going to be better. I want political party, and I put it also in either row or column. So I put one there, and then for values, I'm just going to do a count of how many presidents. Lots of advanced things we can do, but you got to do this step by step so you don't get overwhelmed. Okay? So this is Steve Bergen, and we're ending this example. Okay, my boss is beginning to demand more and more things of me, and now my boss wants me to analyze the 35 presidents by their occupations and tally by the inauguration age to see if there's any correlation between the occupations and the ages that the presidents got inaugurated. I would love if you paused this video and you did it yourself. That would be really cool. Or you can do one step ahead of me. I'll get my pivot table. I'll let it grab the data that it likes to select. And I'm no longer scared about this thing. I've got rows, I've got columns. So we want to analyze by occupation. So I simply go to where it says occupation and I drop it in either rows or columns. And it puts it in alphabetical order that way, or it puts it in alphabetical order that way. And you decide aesthetically which makes more sense. Now, it doesn't tell you how many actors or authors. Feel free to pause and do it yourself until you put something in the values. And to find out if there were 1, 2, 3 presidents, all you need to do is put the presidents in value, and it will automatically do a count on those presidents, and we'll find out that 21 of the 35 presidents were lawyers and 4 were soldiers. Now my boss wanted what? He or she, I believe, wanted me to analyze the occupations by inauguration age. So if I put inauguration age here, I'll get it, but not quite in a good way. It goes way far down and it shows you all of them. So I'm going to put it over in columns. And now it puts it from 43 to 69. It shows you for each row. It gives you totals on the bottom and totals on the right. So we've done just what my boss wanted, and he or she is happy. We've analyzed the 35 presidents, tallied by the inauguration age. Okay, another example. We'll do a little harder work this time. We're going to analyze the political parties of the 35 presidents, and this time we're going to tally the average percentage of electoral and popular votes. Again, I'd love it if you beat me to it, and I'll give you opportunity to pause and actually do that. Pivot table, take the data. Whoops, made a mistake, not on purpose. Mistake I made was I highlighted just a row or a column, and I should have ignored the highlighting and then go to pivot table, and then it would do its own thing. So that's actually a good thing. Don't highlight 1 or 2 rows, select all, and then go to pivot table. So we want to analyze political party. So I'm going to put that here. and I see what I have, or I'm going to put it there and I see what I have. I'm not sure which one I want. Now I want to know something about, what was it? It was about the percentage of electoral and percentage of popular. Okay? So what are you going to put where? Go ahead and do it if you like. This is a perfect time to beat me. I'm slowing down. But if you don't, I'm going to put electoral here. Oh, wait, I want the average. That doesn't do any good. I'm going to put that and throw it away. I'm going to put electoral here. That gives me the number. I want the average electoral. Is there a way to change that count to average? Or could I put electoral again, and this time double click on the eye? Actually, just click on the eye, choose average, and now I find out that 13 elections were won by Democrats, and the average percentage was 66.8. I don't like all those decimal points, so I'll click on the eye here, and now I will go to number, and go to number and change it to 1 decimal point. And my boss also wants me to do something with the popular vote. Now if I just put popular down here, it just puts the same numbers. That's kind of useless. I'll just throw that away. But what I want is the popular down here with an average. So I'll click on the eye, change it to average, change it to number, change it to 1 decimal place. And now I've got what I'm looking for. Dividing by 0 is not an error message. It's just that the data related to those particular presidents is not available. I'll prove that to you by showing you the actual presidents. So if I pick presidents and I drop it here, it'll be in columns. If I drop it here, it'll be in rows. I hope you can picture the difference. Columns, it goes across, and I'm going all the way to Z and beyond. If I drop it here, it's a better visual display, and I can see for these presidents, James, Madison, Monroe, Adams, and Jefferson, the popular vote was not available, and that's why it's dividing by 0. This doesn't have to be there, and I can throw that away. All right, we completed example 3. My boss is happy, and I hope you're feeling with each example more and more empowered by this tool, which moves you absolutely into the spreadsheet varsity. Fewer than 10% of Excel users know anything about pivot tables. So congratulations, and practice, practice, practice. Okay, inch by inch we're making progress with pivot tables. We're going to switch to the countries of the world. We're going to look at the regions of the 227 countries and see if we can tally the average population and the average infant mortality rates. Okay? If I have something highlighted and then I choose pivot table, I get in trouble. Remember that? We've seen that because it's just going to do that. So make sure that nothing's highlighted or everything's highlighted by clicking on the upper left. Then go to pivot table. It does the exact range that it needs to. We want to get the regions. So I'm going to take regions and either put it in row or column, and I see the effect. Doing one step at a time and seeing the effect is so helpful. This is a complicated beast, pivot tables, right? And until you've done 20, 30, 50 examples, you're not going to have the intuition and you're going to need to take things slowly. Okay, we've got our regions, but we don't know how many in each one. So we need to put something in values. The country name, if all we're doing is counting, suffices. Do one thing and check it out. Do you like this display better, or do you like this display better? I prefer the first one. Now, the problem was, I believe, to analyze the population. So if I click on population and I put it down here, it just does a count. That's not what we want. But if I found the average population by coming here and went average, I get what I'm looking for. No commas, the numbers are kind of ugly, but if I click on the eye and I go to numbers, I believe I can use the 1,000 separator. I don't need decimal places here. I'll click OK. I also have something under options. I'm not sure that that's going to be useful. Okay, so average, I, number, commas, 0, okay, okay, and now I've got my average population for the various regions, showing me that Asia is heavily populated with an average per country of 131 million, and Oceania is the least with 1 million. Now, my boss also said in the problem to find the infant mortality rate. So let me pause. Can you do it before me? Think about it. Infant mortality rate. Sure you can. What are you going to do? Take that and put it here? No, that does that horizontal thing, not useful. Put it here? No, now it makes that so ugly row by row. Put it here. And now it gives you the count of infant mortality. The count of. That means how many. That's just the same as how many countries. So you have to click on that, click on the eye, change it to average, click OK. You get all sorts of different decimal variations. So click back on I, number, 1 decimal point, OK. Use comma separators if we need to. Click OK. And now we've got average of infant mortality rates. You can do everything you do with Excel, you can do in your pivot table. It's still yours to deal with. So if you want to take all this and you want to format cells and you want to make alignment be wrap, that's fine. And then you can wrap column D to look like that. If you want to color code something and you want the population to be a background color, you can do that. So it's just like you're in Excel, but when you click on the pivot table, you have this, which is called the pivot table builder. And with each example, hopefully you're saying, hey, I can do this. We haven't touched filters yet, right? We'll do that in our next example. But I'm hoping that the rows, columns, and values are something that you're feeling as you do your, hopefully, 4th example. You're feeling you've got it under control. Okay, another example. We're going to use countries of the world. This time we're going to use a filter. We're going to analyze birth rate and death rate. And we're going to see if we can then be clicking on and off and finding out which regions are closest for birth rate and death rate. Okay, so I'm going to go select all. I'm going to go data. I'm going to go pivot table. I'm going to get regions of the world in rows. I'm going to get birth rate and death rate. I'm going to make a mistake because it's just a count. What I want is to go to the I and change that to average, and go to the I and change that to average. And I can change these to decimals this way. I don't have to do it using the other way. I can go number, I can go 1. Okay, and now I'm going to play the filter game. I don't have a filter. I have regions, values, and then I have the two averages here. So I'm going to put a region in the filter, and now I'm going to be able to find the regions by clicking on this. I lost my regions down here. That's why it doesn't look familiar. And now I'm going to analyze which two might be the same. So, hey, wait a second. Asia seems the same as Northern Africa, right? So let me click off of that and just Asia and Northern Africa. Not so much. They're this very similar birth, but not the same in terms of death. So let me try something else. Oh, wait a second. The Eastern Europe is 10.3, and CW of independent states is 10.3. Let me click off select all and just do that. So all I'm doing here is forcing you to use the filter, which is a tool you already know. How did we get the filter here? We got the filter by going to the pivot table builder and putting region in the report filter. And then we're using the filter here. We need to remember to put region down here. When you use the filter, I believe you can also sort it from A to Z in different ways. There's a lot of flexibility here, and it's not that important to solve this problem and find out which two regions of the world are closest. But I'm kind of interested in that, so I'm going to continue looking a little bit and see if I can find something that looks right. I don't know, but I do know that the filter is good. You can see what the filter is doing here. I saw how to get the filter, and I'm getting better with each example of using a pivot table. Remember, the pivot table is in the bottom left, where you make a new worksheet automatically, but you can change that to say pivot table. Okay, we're done with that example, and you're going to start using filters when you need them. Okay, change the spreadsheet, but we're going to continue doing a pivot table. So I've got some sample data from one school that has used Excel to keep track of scheduling 155 kids into, I think, either electives or afternoon activities. And if you look at the column headings, the students are listed in column A, and the headings are listed in row 1. And I think that represents Monday and Tuesday in terms of their extracurricular activity. And I've removed the students' names just to make sure there's no confidentiality problem. And they're just called student 1 through student 155. And I've just left the first 3 letters of the kid's name. So I will highlight everything and go to our friend under data called pivot table. and I will see if I can analyze Monday, day 1, and then do a count of the number of students in that activity. And we've got it. You may be confused why orchestra is twice. Newspaper was misspelled there. That's why newspaper is 1 and 11. But there is a misspelling of orchestra, with orchestra, I believe, having a space afterwards. And just that space makes it into a different category than orchestra without a space. So all I have to do is take this, and I can preserve that or not. And then I could remove that and put Monday, day 2, and get the analysis. And so you have a very powerful tool to just quickly get some numbers. So if you're the scheduling person and you're making decisions about electives, the ability to go like this and get the count of each one, right, is absolutely tremendous. And so we've solved yet another pivot table problem. All right. Okay, another pivot table example. A few curveballs thrown in here, so be careful. So Rob has found this file from Florida Public Schools. It contains 3,187 schools from different school districts. Then there's some numerical value called total points 2013 that each school has accumulated. So you see column B is the district name, column E is the total points, and we want to do a pivot table analyzing district name. So of course we're going to select all, and then we're going to go to our friend to do a pivot table under data, and beware that even though we usually get a friendly environment with field names, here we don't. There are no field names over here. There are no categories. So we're ready to scream until we go back to the data and realize that the category names are in row 4, and there's no way that the computer would know they were in row 4. So we're going to need to use a trick or two. One trick is we could eliminate and delete rows 1, 2, and 3, and now row 1 would be the category names. But I'm not going to choose that trick. I'm going to try to highlight from A1 to the bottom right. But again, that's not a lot of fun when we have 3,000 rows. So that's going to invoke splitting the window using that tool. And now I can come down, and much easier now to go click on A4, and now click on, with shift held down, F4 or G4, or however complete I want to be. I can go forward to the right, and I can click with shift held down on AC4. The important curveball here is that I've highlighted, before I choose pivot table, I've highlighted just the data that I want to be analyzed, and I'm using the shift click trick. And now I go pivot table, and now I'm good. And now I've got district number and district name. I want district name to be in the row. I want to count how many schools are in each district, so I'll put school name in the value section. Now I see that I've got good results. Part of the exercise was the curveball to find the average of total points. So I'm going to get total points down here. But as you know from previous examples, that's just the count. So I'm going to click on I and click on average. And now I'm in great shape. And I'm going to change this by formatting number to be 1 decimal point. And now I can see how various school districts did, how many were in each district, and what the average of the total points was. And I've completed my example. So I'm all set. Hope you follow that. If not, just go back on the video and watch it again. So the key element here, and if I scroll to the bottom, there's a total of 3,187 schools, each of them with the average there. And this is my pivot table done. So don't forget, you can right mouse click or control click on sheet 2 and change it to say pivot table done. But the key thing was to possibly use the separator here, which was the split window. Now I'll remove the split, but I can invoke the split by either using window or pulling down from this location and then highlighting from A4 to the very bottom before I chose pivot table. Okay, Steve Bergen signing off on this last example. Bye everybody.